Someone made a statement, um, very simple statement, as a, I would imagine, a response to a video that I did, again, about martial arts master Bruce Lee. And he or she, whoever it was, just simply made the statement, Bruce Lee was a fraud. Blanket statement, very general. So I'm not going to give that very much credence, but I'll just simply say this, that if Bruce Lee, the martial arts phenomenon, according to the world, by and large, in the martial arts world, by and large, how is he a fraud? Why is he a fraud? A fraud means something that's not legitimate, that is not real, or that is, or he is, she is pretending to be something that they are not. The question has been, was Bruce Lee as good as people said he was? Was Bruce Lee simply an actor? Or was he actually a legitimate martial arts master, grandmaster, practitioner? There is so much evidence to prove that Bruce Lee was who he was, and who we who support his legacy say that he is. His fans, a significant portion of the martial arts community across the world, and his students, and even his family, knew that Bruce Lee was the real deal. When you look at the volumes of martial arts material that Bruce Lee amassed in such a short period of his life, at the age of 32, he died. A library on virtually every martial arts system or style that existed, that he knew of and was aware of, he had. He studied, trained, taught, and created a martial arts system. Now, for those people who say he's simply an actor, you got to really, really hate that individual for no good reason at all. Because there's nothing that you can conclusively use to prove that he was just simply an actor. Now, don't forget, we're talking about the 60s and the early 70s that Bruce Lee had arisen. We're not talking about the 90s and the 2000s. So you have to be able to differentiate between the time periods. During the time that he was here, he was par excellence as it relates to martial arts. And all of the people who have challenged him post his death, who were living during his time, never challenged him then. Why now? And all of the ones who challenged his legitimacy as a martial arts expert, master, grandmaster, here in recent years, never challenged him then. So you're not credible if you fall amongst them. Why didn't you challenge him then? Why didn't you train with him then? And for those that were around during that time that he was still living, why didn't you just go and practice with him? You were afraid to. Because he was, not that anyone else was, But he was someone who was so devoted to his training, to his study of the science of martial arts. Most of you wouldn't hold a light to Bruce Lee during that time. That's why one of the reasons that some whites hate on Bruce Lee is because he wasn't the right color. And someone's going to comment on this video and say, why does color have to matter? It does matter when it matters. So Bruce Lee, being Asian, and during those tumultuous times of segregation and prejudice and racism during the 60s and 70s, still police brutality going on against black Americans during those times, still segregation, and Asians were not liked by white America at the time, as were blacks not liked by white America at the time as equals. So they didn't want an Asian hero in the movies, in entertainment and the martial arts especially, more respectfully. And they didn't want Bruce Lee being the face of an icon in martial arts. That's why David Carradine was chosen over Bruce Lee, a white man posing as a Chinese man in the TV series Kung Fu. Bruce Lee was upset about that, but he was actually Asian and he actually knew Kung Fu. Can you say racism then? That's why you had Charlie Chan and all of the other exploitations of Asians, slant eyes and buck teeth and things like this, white Americans imitating Asians, making fun of them and scoffing at them and so forth. They didn't want an Asian to be a hero, not in the American marketplace. They didn't want that to be true. That's why so many people who were not Asian fought against Bruce Lee being coined as the greatest martial arts master or exponent of the martial arts of our time. They didn't want to accept that, and to this very day they still hold dear to that, some. But it's funny, this so-called actor has been lauded by many black or African Americans, if you want to use that expression, by many other Asians, many other whites, many other people across the planet. He's been praised, and he's been featured in so many films. His sayings, his quirks, his quotes have been used in so many publications, bodybuilding magazines and various other periodicals and so forth, and magazines in general, and newspapers and so forth. You still hear Bruce Lee's name being used. Nobody else. But this is just an actor, right? Now, how could a fraud go on for so long? During that short tenure that he had on this planet, and then 50 years after he's dead, he's still the most talked about, most controversial figure in martial arts in the world. He still is. But he's a fraud, right? I think not. The person who made that statement and the people who make those similar statements, you're frauds. And if you were standing here in front of me, I'd tell you the same thing. You are a fraud. You are what most coin as, or use the expression, a hater. Because you don't love yourself. And you can't stand to see someone outdo you, or someone praised above you, because maybe you never made it in your particular craft. Maybe you're not even vested in the martial arts at all, and you're just a critic who's uninformed. Now, if you really cared as to the legitimacy of Bruce Lee, you would study his life. You would study his martial arts, and you'll find out his evolution during the short period of time that he was here. and you would come up with a different conclusion, not that he's a fraud. I'm sure that there were many other people who could have taken the place of Bruce Lee in the Green Hornet and Longstreet and Marlowe and some of the other things that he did. But he was chosen by various organizations, various people, various actors to be a part of their lives. James Coburn, Dean Martin, Steve McQueen, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Dan Inosanto, June Reed, and the list goes on. And his system of I almost said my system, Jenindo, and his system of Jeet Kune Do is still practiced, it's still taught across the planet. Not as much as I would like to see, not as much as I would like to see it promoted, but it's still practiced. It's still taught across the globe. There's still Jeet Kune Do schools. So I just wanted to express that thought to this individual, to all of those individuals that still want to call him just an actor. My question to you is, what are you? And who are you? What authority are you to just simply call him an actor when he still has all of this prestige in the world? He still has all of this support in the world, despite the haters. That segment of our society is going to always be with us. You're going to always have those detractors. You're always going to have those people that's going to be out here surfing the net just to try to find something wrong with everything. Those trolls. So I stand the same. I stand firmly on Bruce Lee's legitimacy, his contributions to the martial arts and to the world, to life. And then these so-called drug letters come out. Nobody's listening to that. 50 years after this man is dead, all of a sudden someone found some letters about some drugs. You're a little too late, really. You cannot tarnish that man's legacy. He's done so much. And the martial arts, on the level that it's practiced across the world, in different facets, in different systems and styles, would not be so if it were not for Bruce Lee. Bruce Lee is responsible for you doing martial arts. Yes, he is. He's responsible for you having a school. He's responsible for you having a place to go and train it. Had it not been for Bruce Lee, I wouldn't be doing martial arts today. He inspired me as he did millions. That was it. And that was all.